Hello class, this is Professor Robert Kelly, and what I wanted to share with you today is I wanted to do the video and a sample of the video case study presentation which I'm asking you guys to do. I think the best way to actually show you what I'm looking for is give you an example. So anyways, I call this case study the M&M Knopf case study, and I'm going back a little ways in my history, but in 1993 I used to work for a company out of Philadelphia, and at that time I was a buyer for them, and they remanufactured auto parts, and I'd go around to different suppliers and purchase cores, which is the actual broken part that needs to be remanufactured. Send those in, we'd remanufacture them, then sell them to O'Reilly's and Pep Boys and different customers that we had throughout the United States. Well, anyways, one time I was over at a core supplier in New Jersey, and the company was called M&M Knopf, and did a little bit of buying there. On my way out, you know, the owner throws me a large bag of M&Ms. Of course, not this size. It was the big bag of M&Ms, and says, "Hey, compliments on M&M Knopf." They had M&Ms left over from one of their trade shows, so I took that home and opened them up, put them on the coffee table, and the next day my uncle came over, who was the COO of the company in which I worked for, and I said, "Hey, have some M&Ms, compliments of M&M Knopf." And we talked a little business, talked a little bit about life in general, and after that he headed home. Well, the next day at work, this would be a Monday, I was called into his office, in the corporate office. Now, I worked a few buildings away from him in the manufacturing area, and I was like, all right, you know, 23, 24 years old, being called in up to the executive office, you know, get to sit with the big wigs, and being a little cocky about it and feeling great about it. Calls me into the office, and in there were the VPs and the directors having their weekly meeting, and I just sat in the whole meeting, and then all of a sudden my uncle brings up an issue about taking handouts from suppliers. Goes into great detail and then points to me and says, "Robert took a few items from a supplier that he bought from last week, and just ripped on me right there in front of basically the different executives and management leaders of the company." And at the time, I was somewhat devastated. I'm thinking, wow, this is my uncle, for one, but two, it was a bag of M&Ms, you know, is what I'm thinking. And so basically, from that point on, leaving the office, he never spoke about that issue again. I, at the point, being 23, 24 years old, was devastated. My question to you guys would be, what would you do at that point? Obviously, you're hurt, obviously somewhat confused, embarrassed even, but what would you do at that point? Was my superior right in what they did or how they handled it? And was I in the error at all, is what you have to think. Well, anyway, since you're not able to answer those questions directly to me, I'm going to finish them for you, and then also give me your thoughts, because when you guys respond to the video on your response post, you get actually points for that, 25 points, and then 25 points for the presenter. So make sure you respond to everybody's videos throughout the week. But the main issue is this. We had basically what I would call an ethics credo, a policy set up throughout the company for dealing with suppliers or any type of purchases at all. Now, at the time of hiring, you would sign those statements through HR that you have read them thoroughly, you know everything about them, and that you're being held accountable for that. Well, I signed it, but obviously I didn't read every detail. And that was my error, because the policy was not to take anything from a supplier, especially from suppliers that we're doing business with or hold an account with. So that was my error. I stated and signed that I read this, would obey it, would follow it, and I didn't read it. I just signed it. Big mistake on my part. Another thing was my uncle. You could say, well, he was very harsh, very cruel in how he handled that situation. But my uncle knew that he was basically placing me in a position where down the road he knew that he would want me to be a director or a VP of purchasing. And this little area of basically handling what he did, would I be able to do continue to move forward, or would I show him attitude? And knowing that I would be dealing not with M&Ms, but down the road millions and millions and millions of dollars. So he was testing me. A harsh way to test, but sometimes tests are somewhat harsh. And now that you think back and look back, or I look back at it, I thank him for that. But it was something very hard at the time to go through. But that's my case study. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that, your issues on that, and get your feedback on that. Thank you very much. And guys, this is all I'm asking you to present. 5 minutes of a certain ethical issue that you went through or that you know of in your career or business world that you've been in, maybe not presently, but maybe something in the past, that you could share with the class, and it'll give us insight. It'll give us wisdom, because each one of you guys have a different journey that you've been on in this business world, and the things that you have gone through and how they were handled help us to be more wiser and better businessmen and business women in this world. So anyways, thank you again for your time, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback. Thank you.